And welcome back to Let's Talk. This is Laughingboy, and I'm here with...
I'm Tom Fawkes. We went over who I am in the first part.
Yes, we did. And today we're going to go over who your channel is. So this is Tom Fawkes.
Who my channel is? It's
who
alive!
Your channel is.
My baby boy!
I mean, it's like the Velveteen Rabbit. If you love it long enough,
Yeah.
it comes to life. So now that we've gotten to know you a little better, it's time we learn about the history of your channel, as I'm reading directly from my notes. So for the viewers, this should hopefully get people caught up with several years worth of history, maybe inside jokes or references, catchphrases, what have you. So that by the next time you're at a convention, last year's new subscriber will be this year's aficionado, like I'm some fucking magazine or something like that.
Top 10 ways that you can learn your Tom Fawkes better. You won't believe number 5.
Number 8 will open up a new asshole. So,
Oh, Jesus!
So tell me about your channel.
I mean, bog standard Let's Play channel. I sometimes post, I'll post things like stream highlights on there as well as on top of, animated content from Source Filmmaker. Try to get into Flash for a little while, like really early on, but that didn't take. The channel initially started out as doing a Machinima series with my friends from high school. And, well, I mean, as you can see, it's no longer being produced, so.
So what got you into making that Machinima content?
So I believe it was like around the spring or winter of 2008. Buckle in, because it's a long one. A rosy cheek and incredibly long-haired Tom O'Grady, that's my real name for those of you who are wondering, was watching videos on YouTube, and all the speculation that was surrounding the new Super Smash Bros. Game that would be coming out later. This was like the winter of 2007, I should say, like late 2007.
Right.
Speculation was wild about what would be in the new Super Smash Bros. Game for the Wii. And everyone was making their predictions on characters, because now that Sonic and Solid Snake were in it, the skies were the limit.
Yeah,
so,
it was pretty high.
Yeah. So in the searching for this like new content in this game, I found a small video or not really a small video, but it was a rather popular video by a YouTuber of the name of Shippage. It was his Smashtasm series, and it was a Machinima series that was produced in Super Smash Bros. Melee using commonly like action replay codes and whatnot in order to get like a free camera and edit the game so that way you could have like, you know, awesome cheats and hacks and whatnot and stuff like that.
Okay.
And it was the story about this one user who was trying to get revenge on a guy who punked him in a tournament and basically trying to like teach him a lesson and whatnot. Okay. And you know, and it just didn't really like it sort of like escalated from there. So being the apple cheeked youngster that I was like, hey, I bet I could do that. And then I found out that because I didn't know how to cheat in video games at the time. Well, I did, but then I kind of gave up on it but that's another story in its own. I waited until Super Smash Bros. Brawl came out because that had a built-in replay mode. And thus began the story of Smash Fighter. Oh boy. I look upon that with fond memories of making it, not so much fond memories of watching it. But yeah, that's what got me into making Machinima content.
So I kind of wrote these out of order. This is why you don't try to do your notes at like 12 o'clock at night if you're terrible. So what was so I guess that was the inspiration for Smash Fighter, right?
Yes. Just Smashtasm was the inspiration for Smash Fighter.
Right. So then what was the reason why you stopped working on it?
It expanded into a much like larger production. So like it went from like, because I at one point I went off to college. And the main like voice actors were still like a couple years younger than I was, so they were still like back home in like my hometown, still going to high school. Okay. So when I finished up the first sort of like mini series of it, I tried to move on to a second one, but it was at that point where it's like, well, I'm off at school now, and I can't really get in contact with them because it was before. It was really before a time when like it wasn't really before a time that Skype was popular, but it was before a time where like me and my friends really adopted it, you know, because we didn't need it at the time.
Well, it wasn't that great at the time.
Well, it was pretty good for what it was.
Right.
But yeah, it was. We didn't really need it at the time, sort of thing. So I tried to move on to using people that I knew that I met over the internet, and like people that I got from voice acting forums. And it got to a point where I'd finish writing a script, I'd send the script out to my voice actors, and I wouldn't hear back from them for like months.
Whoa.
So it basically turned into like, I can't keep this up anymore. So I just stopped doing it and moved on to doing like other Machinima shorts for a while, and eventually moved on to Let's Plays.
Yeah, and talking a little bit about Machinima. So how did, and this is not part of the notes necessarily, but how did you get into like Machinima? So like the style of animation is called Machinima, but you actually sent videos to the channel Machinima.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
How did that work out?
So in a this is pretty much all centered around Shippage, pretty much, because he was the first of the people who did like Super Smash Bros. Content to get a partnership with Machinima, where we'd send in the stuff, and he had gotten a partnership with well, not really a partnership, but like they before like channel partnerships were a thing. He got into this thing called the Directors Program with Machinima, where you'd send in your Machinimas and they'd like, you know, pay you like by the view and like you know, CPMs and whatnot.
Right.
But yeah, and like, you know, after that, or like there was like this, it kind of turned into a gold rush where it's like, oh man, like these people producing high quality Machinimas and like Let's Plays and whatnot, or not really Let's Plays, but high quality Smash Machinimas can sort of break into this thing. And then it turned to a thing where later it was, at the time he was referred to as Dexter Boy 124, but called Dexter Manning, got his breakthrough with, you know, various Machinimas like Wolf's Mission and like Peach's Slutty Adventure. Not very politically correct, but looking back on it now. And Lyle, formerly known as Guitar Master X7, Lyle McDouchebag with his Master Chief series in Halo, but he also did a Super Smash Bros. One called Brawlgasm, where for the most part it was like improvised skits that he would then like expand into like that he would like write out later and expand into like a full sort of like shorts. And you know, at one point it was getting to the point where it's like, okay, so kind of getting into this here, like I believe it was like early 2009 when I finally broke into the Machinima scene, because I finally got a recommendation from one of my friends. I tried getting a recommendation before, but this is but I got it from a person who was recommending everybody, regardless of what they did. So his recommendation didn't mean anything.
Okay.
But I finally like broke into that scene and started like producing Machinima content for that, because I got a recommendation. They deemed that I was, you know, good enough to do it. I believe at the time I was peaking around 7,000 subs, I want to say.
Okay. I
mean, honestly, going back to like the earlier thing, like once again, this is all centered around Shippage, because like he found like my original Smash Bros. Machinima, you know, like the first episode of Smash Fighter on my channel, and I kind of regret doing this now. I kind of wish I had changed it to private instead of deleting them. But I deleted those videos off my YouTube because they used a lot of copyrighted content. And I didn't want to have to go through like this red tape of being like, oh, your channel is flagged. You can't get this partnership now because of this flagged content.
Right.
So I deleted them off my channel. So I don't have any of the original content or the original like comments anymore. I could probably like do some sort of like Wayback Machine, sort of like a you know thing on that, just to like sort of see it. But Maybe. He had posted a comment on my first episode of Smash Fighter, basically saying something along the lines of like, you know, wow, more people are getting into this game. You know, I'm glad to see like all this like healthy competition. That really sort of like took off. That sort of like, you know, made everybody, you know, see my thing, because back then YouTube was more of a social site than it was like video like production. Like you could see what people commented, you could see what people like. You can still do it now, but it's not like front and center like it used to be. Yeah,
that's true.
So like, you know, without Shippage's initial exposure there, I probably wouldn't be doing as well as I am now. And I have I've got like the opportunity to like call this man, this guy, this person who I looked up to like so much. I got the great honor of calling him one of my best friends. And it's like, it's amazing just how that works out, you know, like this person who you look up to, and then like you manage to get, you manage to like start like working on things. And that's I'm going on a tangent here, but
no.
Don't worry about it. It's like, it's the one thing, the biggest advice I have for people who are trying to break into a sort of like creative industry. Cause like in business, in most businesses, it's not what you know, it's who you know.
Yeah.
And like, you do need a little bit of the what in business to, get to where you are, because you at least need to have like the job,
Well, you have to back that shit up. That's all.
Yes. In a creative industry, it's much more focused on the what than the who. You use that what. You use like the plethora of what that you built up to impress the who. Like, that's the whole point of portfolios. Like, you're showing cumulative over time what you have learned, and using and then like showing it to people, and then like people will be like, wow, that's really good, I want him on the team. Whereas like, I guess in this situation, because we're all more or less independent, is that you make something that's like really highly produced, and it's sort of like a roll of the dice here, because you kind of hope it goes viral so that way people will see it and notice it. And then that in turn gets you, like the high from that viral point doesn't last very long, but it does garner enough attention for people to see you and sort of be like, oh man, like that's really cool. Like they can like, I want to see what other stuff they did and like promote it or like work with them and that kind of thing. You see that all the time in animation, maybe not so much nowadays because of how like YouTube's algorithms have changed to like sort of pull back like the leash on like what can and can't be noticed in like highly produced content. But that's a different story. But still, it's that's my advice to anybody watching right now. It's there is like a who but it's heavily in this industry. It's heavily backed by what you know.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't really have anything to add to that. So I guess we'll move on. So your work on Machinima and working with Machinima sort of evolved into these Source Filmmaker videos. And so my next question is, what made you stop making content for Machinima? Why did you suddenly change from Machinima to more just like Source Filmmaker based content?
Okay, well, there's a couple answers to that. Well, the reason I stopped producing like Machinima, like on Machinima, is because at one point they, I guess it was around like 2009 or 10 when Red vs. Blue season like 6, 7, and 8 came out, like the recollection.
Right.
And that was more around the time when they brought on Monty Ohm to do animation for them. Machinima saw this and was like, well, we need to get more highly produced stuff in here. So they pretty much put like a block on anything that wasn't at least on Red vs. Blue's level.
Oh, wow.
So I just couldn't I couldn't really get into it. Like I tried to post stuff on there and to be like, no, not well produced enough. You go back to the drawing board, hire an animator. And it's like, I couldn't afford that kind of thing. Like pretty much like this thing that was being used as a way to sort of like bolster the careers of people who didn't have the money to sort of like highly produce things was now being like blocked off for just the people who could highly produce things. And it was very frustrating. At one point there was a turn where Machinima wasn't as lucrative as LPing. So at one point I got over to that. And then Source Filmmaker came much, much later when I really got into Team Fortress 2. That was more around the time when I really got into, Source Filmmaker, because Team Fortress 2 had a... because like I said, I was really into Team Fortress 2, and Source Filmmaker was more of a thing that you kind of had to, like, it was more of a thing that was leaked from Valve software to the public, and it was very like, it was really, what's the word for it? Raw. It was very like raw. Like none of the interface was very user friendly, and you really had to know what you were doing in that beforehand to get into it. So I just avoided that altogether. And mind you, this is around the time when I was close to, if not already graduated from college, when they released or not even released, but they were getting into releasing a sort of a beta version for Source Filmmaker. I managed to get into it. I don't remember how I got into it. I think it was probably because of, I don't remember how I got into it in the first place, but I remember I managed to get a friend of mine into it because they were asking creators. No, I remember what it was. Machinima sent me, because I was still with Machinima at the time, just not producing as much content for them. Machinima sent me a copy of it, and they were like, do you know anybody else you'd recommend to try to like get into this thing? I knew a bunch of other people who were into TF2 as well. So I sent them in, and that kind of like kickstarted a bunch of them off into doing other things. Like, I don't know if you've ever heard of Smashing Veteran. He just goes by his name Austin now. But he got into like a lot of Source Filmmaker content. He's the guy who does Lyle McDouchebag's. He animates Lyle McDouchebag's The series, which was like which I believe the last one that I produced for him, because I was on that show as well. I animated the last one I animated for him was The Economal, and he's moved on to doing like the Trumby and the. Which was like a parody on Donald Trump and all that, and all these other ones. Like he does that one, and he does a bunch of stuff for his own channel as well. And then Shippage also produces a show on his channel. Once again, we're going back to Shippage here. He does Starter Squad, which is that show, that SFM produced show about like the 3 starter Pokemon kind of going on a journey of more or less like self-discovery. Very, very like comically written. But yeah. I like I managed to get it. Like I managed to get like both of them copies of Source Filmmaker when it was in its very early stages, and like that sort of like kicked off that whole thing. But yeah, no, I got into Source Filmmaker, I guess, significantly after there was that block on Machinima's director content, and the first thing I produced was a try to go back to the original question here. The first thing I produced was a comic done by Katie Tiedrick on Awkward Zombie, where it was a soldier like running up and seeing a medic heavy combo, and then just like throwing his rocket launcher aside, jumping off a cliff, and then like it's revealed the heavy medic combo was just 2 spies disguised their own team as the heavy and medic. And that was the first thing I put out on the channel. And then it's like, well, I could sort of like produce more stuff in that, but I couldn't really go in. I don't know why, like I've got trouble like producing my own stuff in terms of like writing and like blocking and directing and all that stuff. So I ended up making Source Filmmaker animations reference to like Let's Players. Like I did a Game Grumps one. I do a bunch of the Runaway Guys ones. I did one for the Derp Crew when I was doing like Minecraft and whatnot. So I believe I've told my life story on Source Filmmaker. So there you go.
Well, and that did actually answer my second question, was what were they about? So we can move on from there. At what point did you start actually making Let's Plays?
Oh man. The Let's Plays started, I think the first Let's Play I ever put out was in November of 2011. And the reason I did was because I wanted to do something side by side with something my friend, what Lyle McDouchebag was doing, called the Month of the Empty Wallet, because a bunch of really good games were coming out that November. Like that was sort of like a renaissance, if you will, of AAA games. I guess every November is, but that was like the year that like Skyrim was coming out, and like Skyward Sword, and like a new Saints Row, and like a bunch of other games came out that month. So like I put out like sort of like Steven Plays his like first 30 videos. I put out a bunch of videos like that were just like first 30-minute impressions of like gameplay of what I did. And I think the first full Let's Play I put out, where it's like I played from like beginning to end, was the first Portal game. And that was the only Let's Play I think I produced from my my college dorm.
Oh wow.
But yeah, that was when I started. That was when I first started really getting into Let's Plays, and then from there it was just a pickup of just I could do full versions of like all these games. I did Portal 2 for like almost immediately after I did the first Portal. I'm trying to think of what like one of the earlier ones was. I did a bunch before like Paper Mario. I think the first like long form Let's Play I really did was Pokemon White 2, and that was immediately after I got my 3DS capture card. But yeah, pretty much getting into all the that was pretty much like what got me into LPing, and that's like all. I mean, like it was kind of like a build up, honestly. It wasn't really like I just jumped in and started doing like full Let's Plays. I did like first 30s first, and then I started doing like full Let's Plays.
No, that makes sense. Was there did anyone or anything inspire you to start doing these Let's Plays? Like, you mentioned how your videos were kind of like Steven's, but was that the like impetus for doing your own? No,
I did not know who Steven Plays was at the time.
Okay.
The only reason for I'd seen like Let's Plays around. I don't remember like where I don't know where exactly I was seeing Let's Plays exactly. But I'm trying to think of like how I got started into them in the first place, like what the impetus was, as you say. But I believe I believe it was just because I wanted to do something alongside of like the Month of the Empty Wallet with Lyle McDouchebag.
Okay.
But that was pretty much it.
One more thing. So your channel did have a a lot of different types of content. Was it just kind of trying different things to see what stuck, or was it just more like you wanted to do what you felt like regardless?
Little at column A, little at column B. It generally evolved. Like, it went from doing the Machinima content to, like, where Machinima wasn't really, like, a lucrative thing anymore, into doing Let's Plays. And then from Let's Plays, I don't know, like, I started my YouTube channel on a sort of a creative basis, and I still want to produce, like, creative, highly produced content, but it's,
right.
I don't know, it's very difficult to do that, like, throughout the Let's Plays. Like, you try to set a deadline for yourself. And that's the one thing that's the one hard thing about, like, basically doing this kind of thing with being your own boss, is like trying to set deadlines and trying to make it so you're meeting up with the status quo that you want set for yourself.
Tell me about it.
But yeah, it kind of evolved from Machinima to Machinima Let's Play Hybrid to just Let's Plays to Let's Play with a little bit of animation sprinkled here or there. And now I'm trying to get into more highly produced content. And now I'm actually doing more of like stream highlight content as well, to try and bolster the second channel I have, where I just post the full stream VODs that I do on Twitch, and my Twitch channel in general.
Okay. Well, I think that is a good stopping point for tonight. I like how I started with today and I end with tonight. Just like, this took hours.
Well, I mean, it depends, because, like, are you Eastern Standard Time?
Yeah, I'm Eastern.
I mean, we started this portion of the interview at like 4:59, and now it's 5:30. So, like, what? It's it went from the day to like the night evening sort of era there.
Yeah, that's good enough for me. So we'll see you guys on the next episode. We will talk more about sort of the LP climate at the time you were Let's Playing, as well as like partnerships and stuff like that. So see you guys on the next episode.
In our multi-part interview of picking the mind of Tom Fawkes.
Inside the Let's Players studio.
All right, James Lipton.
Tom Fawkes.
What sort of noises do you hate? What's your favorite curse word?